Hi, you guys. Welcome to my little paintbrush. My name is Miss Cami, and I'm excited you're here today to paint our Christmas axolotl. You will love this. We're going to throw some glitter in, all the fun things. Let me show you. If you've been with us a while, you know that we've got another axolotl paint kit available and tutorial. We thought it would be fun to throw a little Santa hat on our axolotl, super popular, and make a Christmas version. So let's jump right in and paint this together. I am going to quickly flip my screen around so you can see up close. Now, if you have our paint kit, you will have a prepped surface like this all ready to go. If not, you can print off our pattern and then transfer that image yourself. Tonight I am going to be using these three brushes. I've got a big flat. This one is just one that I enjoy. It is not necessary, especially with little kids and smaller hands. I have this flat. This is a number 12 flat, and this is one I would recommend for all artists to use. If you don't have a big flat, it's not a big problem. This one's a really good size, especially for this size of surface. And then I have a detail brush. I also have a jar or cup of water handy and my palette. Again, if you have our paint kit, this is the palette you have to work with. Please note that you can switch these colors up. If you don't want that turquoise axolotl, you can have a blue one. You can mix some white with the red and have a pink one. So you can make this your very own without any trouble that way. All right, let's start with our big flat. I'm going to get it wet in some water and begin with our background. For me, that's going to be a deep blue. And although we have it here on our palette, I want to lighten it a little with some white. And one of the main reasons we do that is because white has the most pigment and it's great for good coverage. So fewer layers, fewer streaks with your brush and all that good stuff, okay? The darker the color of your paint, the more layers it's probably going to need, aside from black. Black usually is good with one. Once you have a nice blue to work with, you can begin filling in the background, which of course is the area surrounding our cute axolotl. Now I am painting on a mixed media paper, so I don't have a wrapped canvas to worry about, but you might be painting on a canvas, and if you are, we would encourage you to wrap your edges. That just means go around the side of your canvas, similar to this. This is the original, and you can see we've taken the paint around the edges of our canvas. And we like to encourage that because then you have a nice completed painting that's ready to be displayed on a shelf or hung on a wall and all that good stuff. So wrap your canvas as you go. That way you're not trying to match colors after the fact, and you can just have it all set. All right, so as I'm going to continue to make sure that my paint is nice and thinned out. We do that by adding water to our paint. And this is important whether you're painting on a canvas or mixed media paper. You want to have a nice consistency of paint. And I like to suggest a melted ice cream consistency because you don't want to get too runny. You don't want to go to a watery or milky phase. You still want your paint to have some give. However, your paint, this is acrylic paint that we're using, and it does not come out of the bottle ready to be used, which is surprising, I think, to a lot of people because they assume their paint, squeeze it out of the bottle and it's ready to go. but it's not. Acrylic paint is made to need water. So be sure that every once in a while you add some water to that paint. It will really help the flow onto your canvas. Now we've got some kind of tricky spots up around this hat and these fun ears. So in cases like these, if you need to switch a brush to get up in these areas, do so without an issue at all. You can go ahead and do that. I usually try and get as much as I can with my big brush, just for the sake of time, but also for the sake of a nice, clean brush stroke. The smaller the brush, you leave room for a lot of those clumps left behind. You don't get that nice, smooth effect as easy. So I like to do as much as I can with my big brush, but that can get complicated. So I'll probably stop right there and finish that off with a smaller brush in just a minute. I'm going to come down to this corner and get the rest of my background in. Now, if you get paint into your axolotl, the best thing to do is not panic, because we haven't painted our axolotl yet, so our next couple of steps will probably help that out. If you get a lot of paint inside your axolotl to the point that you've got maybe a full brush stroke going in, you might want to stop your painting, get a damp paper towel. If you have a Clorox wipe handy, those are great because they have alcohol in them, and the alcohol will eat the paint, and then you can wipe it off pretty easily. But if you have little spots like here and here where you've kind of gone into the axolotl or the Christmas hat, don't worry too much about that. We can clean that up. Also, this axolotl has some black lines around it, so we'll be doing some line work as well. Okay, I've got a little brush, grabbed my detail brush real quick, and I'm going to come up around these spots that are a little more difficult to get with my big brush. Now I just need one layer with this dark blue on my surface, but if you're finding that you want to put another layer in, that is totally fine. Don't ever feel like you can't pause this video and do another layer, or maybe pause it and take a quick break or catch up. Any of those things, you paint at your pace. And we're all going to put a different amount of paint on our brush and on our surface. So you might need a little more than I do, or maybe you're all set and ready to go. But as soon as your background is in, grab your nice big flat, which is loaded with your background color, and add some white to one corner of your brush like this. And we're going to add kind of like a halo around our axolotl. And I like to do this for a couple of reasons. First, it helps this background not look so flat. And I think that's fun because we want to add dimension and the idea of texture and light and shadow. The other reason I like to do this is because we are drawing attention to the subject, which in this case is our adorable axolotl. I have painted with many students, both young and old. Sometimes they really love this step. Sometimes they want to skip it. Keep in mind as you are painting with me today that this is your painting. So at any given time, you can choose for yourself to skip a step or add a step that I haven't done that you want, because at the end of the day, this is your painting, your creation, and you need to go with those gut instincts to make it your own. You will appreciate and love it so much more if you do that. I have seen it time and time again when people change things because they want to, and then they absolutely love it, and then the people that are afraid to and then wish they had. So if you want to change something, change it. If you want to skip something, skip it. If you want to add it. Just stay true to who you are as you paint. All right, so we are just about done with our background. As you can see, I'm taking this light all the way around my axolotl. Up here in the little hat details, it's a little more difficult to get that effect, but I'm just adding little bits. And it's okay if that light is stronger in some areas than others. It's not a big deal. Always remind yourself this is hand painted. It's going to look that way. We are so used to perfect prints and computer animation. It's hard sometimes to accept handmade or hand painted. Okay, we're going to come around, cute little arm, our knee and our foot here. As you can see, there are plenty of places where my paint has gone into my axolotl, my little hat up there. I have not stopped. I have not panicked. I'm just gonna keep going because I believe that my next couple of steps I can fix that. All right, let's wash out our brush thoroughly. And we have a background all set. I hope you love your background color choice, whatever you did. I'm sure that it's awesome. Now I'm going to continue using this big flat as I fill in my axolotl. I'm probably going to switch to my smaller one when I go up to the hat and the eyes and other things like that. But within my axolotl, I'm going to stay with my big flat. Again, if you have a smaller flat, that's fine. I would just suggest that if you have a flat brush, that be what you use. So I have this beautiful phthalo green right here. My axolotl will be more in the turquoise family, but this phthalo green, when you add white to it, turns turquoise. So I'm going to grab a nice scoop of white and I'm going to begin to mix, and you can see we're starting to pull a really pretty turquoise color. It will pull in the cool colors. Unless you add some yellow to it, then you can get into the warms. Now I'm going to add quite a bit of white because your paint will dry a shade or two darker on your canvas than what it looks like on your plate. So keep that in mind. I'm always surprised once I get paint to canvas or paint to surface how dark it actually is. So just kind of veer on the lighter side. And as soon as you do that first brush stroke onto your canvas, you can kind of tell, did I go too light? Did I go too dark? I'm pretty happy with this color, so I'm going to stick with it. Now you can see I went right through my axolotl's traced eye. I'm going to do that because I can still see those lines. And if you have one of our prepped canvases, you should be able to as well, depending again on how thick you apply your paint. If you are nervous about painting right over it, then paint around it. It's fine. That happens many times. I'll have artists that just don't want to risk it and they paint around it. And these eyes are big enough that that won't be too difficult to do. I will paint around the mouth because it will have some red in there for the tongue, and I don't want the red and the turquoise to compete and make kind of a purple tone. Okay. Now our axolotl's little bum sits on the bottom of the canvas, so you'll want to wrap that around as well. Wrap it around the bottom. I like to tell the kids that I paint with that your canvas is your present and your picture is your wrapping paper. So if we were to wrap our canvas in wrapping paper, where would that wrapping paper go? And that kind of helps us understand where our paint needs to go as we paint. I love this color. The first axolotl that Miss Sarah created was pink, which I also love. So if you've chosen to take your red paint and add some white to it and make a pink axolotl, I think that's awesome. So many options. Coming around right by my ears here. So you can see I've painted pretty quickly around this mouth, but as I come up to it, I will slow my stroke and I will press my bristles until they fan out. This pushes all of my paint to one corner of my brush and allows me to get a steady hand and a nice clean edge. Now a lot of this mouth, half of it at least, is black, so if you get turquoise in there, no worries. Okay, there we go. Pretty quick. Now let's go to our ears. I'm calling them ears. I'm hoping that they're ears. I don't know my axolotls very well, but I'm going to call these ears. I want them to be darker than the body. So I haven't washed my brush because I don't need to. I'm just going to start mixing off to the side here. I don't want to completely use up all of my lighter color because I want to use some of that. I'm going to need to use it for some detail work, but I can use some of it to lighten, and I can pull in more white if I need to, but I think I'm good here with this. Again, I'm keeping in mind that my paint will dry that shade or two darker once it is on my surface. And that goes for any surface, particularly wood. It will dry even darker on wood. Just a basic rule of thumb with paint. Dries darker. Alright, so here we go. Painting these in. I think I want to go just a bit darker. Again, sometimes you have to get that paint on your surface to really see where you're at. And these cute ears do hug the edge of the canvas. So you guys know what that means. You gotta wrap, right? Now, I can tell right now that I'm going to need another coat of this darker green. And because I am painting on a mixed media paper, this first layer will dry pretty quickly for me, and I'll be able to do that next layer not too far off from my first one. That won't be the case on your canvas. So this is when you'll want to take advantage of technology and pause the video, grab a plate that you can fan your canvas with or a piece of paper to help it dry. You can also use a blow dryer. Obviously, we always encourage to keep it on a low setting for a number of reasons. So here I've got those filled in. That's still wet, so I'm going to just let that dry real quick. And I'm going to switch now to my smaller flat. Get it wet in some water, and I'm going to fill in the red part of my cute little hat, this teeny little hat that sits on top of our axolotl's head. So I was inspired to do this when my daughter came home from the store. She went to the store with her friends, and she came home and she said, "Mom, let me show you a picture." And she showed me a picture of this tiny little stuffed axolotl with a Santa hat on. She said, "Mom, you need to do a Christmas axolotl." And I was a little hesitant because we had already done an axolotl, but I have learned that my kids know best when it comes to what other children are interested in painting. So I went ahead and I painted Miss Sarah's axolotl with a Santa hat. And I will admit, it's pretty cute. I tried big hats, little hats, and I just kind of landed on this one because I loved how it sat on this head. So we've got a portion of our hat, of course, that's going to be white. We're going to go through and clean that up. So right now we're just going to focus on the red. We're also going to put some glitter in this hat. If you don't have our paint kit, it's just a fun glitter glaze that we can put over our paint and add some sparkle, which is a lot of fun to do, especially in the holiday months. So while I have red on my brush, I'm going to come down and I'm going to fill in this cute little tongue. Now I have stuck with my flat brush for this. That might scare you quite a bit doing a small space. You're welcome to change your brush to a detail. It also depends on how damaged your brush is. If you can get a nice clean line with the toe of your brush, that's when we just face the canvas on the toe instead of the flat. And if this brush wasn't a bit newer with a good clean edge, I would probably have opted for a detail brush. This will also have an outline, so I'm not going to worry too much about my edges here. So I'm going to give my brush a nice rinse. Now if you were able to stay out of the white portions of the Santa hat and you don't have any paint in there, you of course don't have to paint it at all because your canvas is white. But I've got some paint in there that I need to clean up. So I'm going to load my smaller flat with some white, and I'm going to clean up, first of all, the cute little cotton ball at the top of the hat. And true to circles, it just gets bigger, right? And this happens no matter how much experience you have in painting. Your circles will grow. And that might need another layer because that blue is quite dark, but we'll see how it goes. Now I'm just going to come along here and clean up any portion of this hat. Again, if you were able to just stay out of your white canvas for these steps, previous steps, you could avoid these altogether without a problem. In fact, most times, if our canvas is white, we don't paint those portions. But in this case, I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup work. And this will help me too as I go to outline these spots in one of the next steps. All right, looking good. I think I'm ready now to add a second layer in those ears. So I'm going to switch back to my big green flat again, load it with that darker green, and this next layer should be just enough to give me the coverage that I want. Again, like I said earlier, and it stands true for this particular step, the darker the shade, the more layers you're likely going to need. The second layer is always pretty easy though, because you've already gone through the trouble of shaping and filling in the grooves of your canvas or your surface, so it usually goes in pretty quick. Okay, we are actually really close to being done. We're just going to go ahead with some of our details. I'm going to fill in my eyes now. I'm going to use my smaller flat brush and some black paint, and I'm going to fill them in. Now, I would tell my class, if they were here right now, that this is a great opportunity to customize this painting. Maybe their axolotl is awake, maybe their axolotl is asleep. Maybe their axolotl is winking. This is the step in the painting where I would encourage each artist to choose those things and make it their own. This would also be the step where I would encourage them to choose whether or not to do eyelashes or eyebrows. And of course, it's so much fun to see all the different things that the artists decide to do. So, as you are painting along, keep that in mind. Maybe your decisions to do a closed sleeping eye axolotl is just based on the fact that you don't like to paint circles, and that's okay too. I make those decisions a lot. I am going to rinse out my brush and switch to my detail brush, and we're going to get going on some fun details. Now, I'm going to make sure my black paint is loose, so I'm going to add a few drops of water. I'm going to dip my brush in my jar and then mix that water into my black paint. And I might do this 3 to 5 times before I feel comfortable with the texture and consistency of my paint. But once I feel good about it, I am ready for details. So let's begin closer to the top of our canvas and work down. That way, if we need to rest our palm on our surface, we're not going to smear our lines, because lines are difficult. Okay, so I'm going to do kind of like a half outline of sorts on some of this. I'm not going to go around everything. I'm just going to kind of indicate some lines. This is helpful because outlining can be tricky, so you can always just kind of cheat and do halfsies on the outlines. Not outlining the whole thing but still giving that clean edge. I come in a little bit. You can see I swooped in a little bit with that part of the hat, added almost like a little wrinkle. That's a fun detail that you can do. Do it on the other side as well. So nice, clean edge, and you can see immediately it just kind of gives everything a sense of being finished and complete. All right, we are going to come up now and go across the forehead, but not all the way. We're going to go kind of halfway like that. And then we'll do an outline here. And we'll just continue to go. We're going to separate some sections here. So I'm going to do section right here, and then I'm going to do a section here. And these sections will make more sense as we continue painting our details in. Come across right here. If you are having a difficult time with your lines, I would encourage you to first check the consistency of your paint. Is it thick? Is it sticky? That is going to make so much difference for you as you are painting. Add water as needed. It's probably the biggest mistake that new artists make is not adding a sufficient amount of water to their paint. They just don't realize how much water they need. So, add the water. Don't be afraid to do that. It will save you a lot of headache. And your lines will be so smooth. And you might actually enjoy outlining, believe it or not, once you understand paint consistency. Okay, I am going to fill in this upper portion of the mouth. That's right above the tongue here. The shadowed part. First I'll just kind of outline it, and then I'll fill it in. You might get a sense with filling this in why it's always better to use a bigger brush when you can, because filling things in with a detail brush can actually be kind of difficult. All right, I am going to outline this tongue here, close it all in. If you are one of our younger artists, you might choose not to do the amount of outlining that we do. It's a little difficult the younger you are, so don't feel bad or don't be afraid to just opt out of that. I put a little smile on my axolotl, and now I'm going to finish up coming down the canvas with the rest of my lines. We've got our cute little arms and hands here that we need to put in. Otherwise, our axolotl might just resemble a green blob. So we've got to put those details in. Come around this one as well. And you can see as we do these lines, it just comes together fairly quickly. And of course, we'll add our highlights and really wake up our painting. Right now it's got a lot of dark happening throughout the canvas. But highlights will brighten it up. Also remember, when you outline, pressure. The harder you push on your brush, the thicker your brush stroke will be. All right. Looking fabulous. If you're still working on your lines, pause this video and then press play when you're all set. I'm going to go ahead and jump into my next step. I'm going to wash my detail brush really well. I am going to put some details in my fun ears. I'm going to load it with that light color. This is our axolotl's body color. Remember, I told you we're going to need that. And we're going to need it specifically for these ears. So I'm going to put a nice stroke into this ear, pressing at the base of my stroke and then kind of letting go of that stroke as it climbs up through the ear. So pressing at the beginning and then letting it go. Again, taking advantage of pressure with our brush, pushing creates a thicker stroke. On this other side, we're going to do the opposite because we're coming in the different direction. So we're going to lightly touch the canvas and then press towards the end of our stroke. Do it again right here. On your brush, it's clean. And then just kind of run your fingers down it so that it's nice and damp, but not super wet and drippy. And then I'm going to put white on a little corner of my brush like this. And this corner is going to be what I pull through my painting and highlight. I'm going to do some up in my cute hat. Now, I hear more complaining about highlighting in my classes than anything else. I always hear, do we have to, Miss Cami? And here's the truth. No, you don't have to. This is your painting and you don't have to. Does it make a huge difference in your painting? Yes. It will make a huge difference. So you decide, but bringing light to your painting is one of the best ways to finish it up. And you don't really recognize that until you can step back and see it all finished. So I add more white to my brush every time I need to. Reload. And if my brush gets too dry, I just dip it in some clean water, run my fingers through it again, and go back to loading it. And the reason we use a nice damp brush is so that we don't get a harsh line. It kind of fades, has almost an ombre effect, which is fun. Okay, I'm going to come around the forehead here with a nice big highlight. And I'll do another one just below it, kind of like a double rainbow, double highlight. Okay, we just got a few more spots to do. Corner of my brush. Of course, I'm going to come up under these cute arms and help them stand out a bit. And our little knee and our feet. And you can see as I do this, the whole painting is just brightening. And that's what we want. We want to add the light. Maybe you don't add as much as I do, but try to add a little, and you will notice the difference that it makes. All right, now that we've added light throughout the axolotl and the cute little hat, we're going to add light in our eyeballs, because of course our eyes reflect the light as well. I'm going to grab my detail brush and do something a little silly. I'm going to put a smiley face at the bottom of my eyes. And this is just something we do here at My Little Paintbrush that we've just learned to love so much. It's just a fun addition. I also am going to add a highlight in the little tongue there. Now I'm going to flip my brush over so that I'm using the bottom of it to create a nice circle to put in my eye. You can swirl it around, but this is a lot easier than trying to paint a circle in. Circles, especially this size, are pretty tricky. Okay, now we are looking super cute. Love it so much. All right, if you have our paint kit, this is when we will add glitter. Now, of course, you can glitter wherever you want, but there are a few important rules to glittering. First, make sure your paint is dry, because if you brush over wet paint, you will smear it. Second of all, make sure your brush is very clean and dry so that you don't have dirty water that smears across your painting. So if you need to take a minute to dry your surface, do that. Mine is right where it needs to be, so I'm going to grab a flat brush that's clean and dry, and I'm going to brush some glitter. Now I chose to glitter the cute Santa hat and the cute ears. And the reason I chose these and not glittering my entire surface is because you don't want to blind the viewers. I have glittered entire surfaces before and came to regret it because it just does not complement the painting, it overwhelms the painting. So if you want to glitter your background, go for it. If you want to glitter your axolotl's body, you can do that as well, maybe the eyeballs. But just pick and choose a few spots to glitter and not the entire painting, which is really hard to do, especially for our younger artists, because we just want to glitter everything. And trust me, I love some glitter too. But we're just going to pick and choose today, and we're going to pick areas that we feel will complement our painting and not take away from all of our hard work. Now this glitter glaze will come on and have a little bit of a murky look to it, but it will dry clear, so don't worry about that. All right, I love it. Let's do my favorite part, which of course is signing our painting and owning our artwork. Grab a detail brush in any color on your palette, and then pick a spot to leave your mark. This can be left however you want because it's your name and it's your painting, so do it however you'd like. I hope you've loved painting this axolotl with me. I would love to see yours, so send them to us, tag us on social media, show us the changes that you made to the axolotl, and we hope that you come and paint with us again. Bye-bye.